so the next day we went back and we played Magic, and in a big group this time. The previous time it was just a couple stragglers from like the tournament. This time it was the full group. And like you would think it was a meme that these guys smell bad.
That's what I've been told.
It's genuinely not a meme. A lot of these guys, I'm sure they're nice guys, are visibly disgusting. Like clearly have not showered in days. They're walking in the door to the tournament, greasy hair, greasy shiny face, splotches of like wiped marks on their shirt, like that level. And for some reason they think it's like okay because everyone around them is behaving that way too, or a lot of them are. It is disgusting how gross they were. There is a meme from like 12 years ago of this guy who went around to Magic the Gathering tournaments, and all he did was like tent his fingers and do a knee, like a one knee, behind guys whose ass cracks were hanging out. And there are hundreds of photos of him doing this at like one Magic tournament, one big Magic tournament. It's just like scrolling of him like going like that, kneeling by guys' enormous hairy ass cracks. It's a genuine problem. I can see why women don't feel comfortable coming to these tournaments and playing, because a lot of these guys are fucking gross. Not all of them, not even a majority, but all it takes is a very vibrant and jiggly minority to ruin the representation of everybody there, which I don't care for. I don't care for at all. At the same time, though, like if you're like Kyle, if Kyle decided he wanted to get into Magic, and then Kyle went to a Friday night Magic, I feel like you could almost intimidate and alpha your way through the tournament. Through veiled threats, and if you bring a gun...
then I can go back to prison.
Where you can teach all your friends Magic the Gathering, and then they'll rape you for being gay. Be on the other side of the
I don't know. There was something about the community element that was fun. You know, I used to do the Friday night.
It was a ton of fun.
Drafts, right? And we go up, we play some draft. We do the draft, which is a couple-hour event. As you play that, if you did well in a small tournament, you win enough to pay for what you entered with, and then you go out to a bar. There's a bar in walking distance of there with a couple friends. We'd sit down and drink beers the rest of the night, and like that was a fun night. Like got to play some games, got to hang out with some buddies, got to drink some beers. Like that wasn't too bad all in all. So I sometimes feel like the downside of playing all the games online is you lose a little bit of the fun of doing these in person.
Yeah, there's the camaraderie and the social bit of it, which is totally something. Like it's fun to socialize, and like you don't think about it, but it's like you're a bunch of people in a room who all have an intense interest. Like there's a big group of people who play Magic the Gathering. A much smaller
entire rest of the world is like, what the fuck is that shit?
What's going on? But like everybody's there and they all have the same kind of obsession over the same game. And it's like refreshing almost, where it's like you can bring up some obscure reference to a card, like, oh, remember blah, blah, blah. And they'll be like, yeah, that was wild. And it's like, man, this is neat. I got, this was like oh my God, it's 2022. Okay. So like 8 years ago now, with my girlfriend at the time, we went to a two-headed giant tournament. And a two-headed giant tournament is more for like beginners, and it means it's 2v2. So 2 people on this side of the table, 2 people on my side of the table, and you work together. It's almost like a way to try and encourage new people to get into the game, because usually there's not 2 experienced players on one side. Yeah.
Are you sharing a deck? So you're kind of like, we're deciding on the moves together, or?
So you have 2 decks. And it's almost like instead of having one front versus your opponent, it's 2 fronts versus 2 fronts.
You share a life total. You can look at each other's cards. So you get some collaborative stuff for that.
Yeah. And I remember we went, and it was our first time going to this particular game store, and we sat down across from this guy that had like in our first game, and it was him and his friend, and me and her were sitting there, and we were going to play. We didn't have like super competitive decks or anything, just there to like have some fun at the game shop. And we start playing through this game, and this guy we're playing against has like a speech impediment. And I don't know what it is, but like people with speech impediments, probably because I make my living through talking, is like I have so much empathy. Like it breaks my heart when someone has a speech impediment. It really like makes me feel sad for them, because it's difficult. It's a difficult thing. Think about it, And so like he had a speech impediment, and so like he would say things like, oh, you can't tap your card like that. That's not allowed because I just played this. And like I would be like, okay, like just usually you kind of just agree like in a friendly way. Like I wasn't like hard reading the cards or anything. We find out like near the end of the game in one particular move, I can't remember, this fucking speech impediment asshole was cheating us the whole time. Like I think he literally pulled a card into his hand like from his lap, and we were like, hey, the end of this game happened. And the end of the game happens, and he's like, all right, I win. You can't block all this. And I'm like, that last end step, you played this. You can't play that. Or I'm sorry, at the beginning of our turn, this turn, you played this. That's a sorcery. You can't play that. That's only your turn. And then he like called a judge or something over, and the guy was like, not serious, just like, okay, yeah, you win. Because he was like the friend of the game store who came there all the time because he didn't have friends, not because he spoke odd, because he's a fucking cunt. And he cheated us out of that. And I remember being like angry, like, dude, you fucking bitch. Like if I had like taken the time to read all the cards and I wasn't just being friendly because I felt bad for you, I would have dominated you. I would have finished it because I had enough. And then he's like, upcoming turn.
Yes, Taylor, I'm well aware that you would have done exactly that. Now, hand me my trophy, bitch boy.
Manipulated.
I'm sorry, Taylor.
That pissed me off. I'm thinking about that now. Pisses me off. That piece of shit.
I have a
cheating in a
one.
Magic game. What an asshole.
So I played Magic as a little kid too, right? Like middle school kind of stuff. My brother and I would go to these tournaments. My brother's 2 years younger than me. So even middle school, you know, he's a couple years younger than me, little kid when we do this. And we go into these places and we dropped off. They held them at like restaurants, like Perkins at I lived in Watertown, New York growing up. And there was a Perkins there that had a big fucking conference room that they would do these tournaments in. My dad would drop us off for the day and we'd come get us like 8 hours later. We'd play the tournament, right? And I remember one of these we went into, and you know, we're little kids there. I'm maybe 10. My brother's maybe like 8 or something, right? And we're at this tournament. And do you know what mana weaving is in Magic? So again, for 2 seconds, I promise won't go long. There's a resource in Magic called lands, and that's how you cast all your stuff. If you don't have enough lands, you can't play. You have to have a ratio of lands to other cards. So one of the ways you were taught as a little kid to do this is you put one land, then 2 cards, and one land, then 2 cards, and one land, then 2 cards, and that gets your ratio all the way through your deck. So he did this. Apparently that's illegal. We didn't know this.
Yeah, that's deck
That's illegal. Right. But the guy he played against, he sat down against him. This guy's in his, I don't know, 30s probably, right? Sat down and took his deck and took 2 cards, and instead of shuffling, took his deck and counted it out opposite the mana weaving all the way. So that separated all of his lands from all of his non-land cards.
What
and
a
then
champion.
He put all the non-land cards on top. So that meant my little brother, who's 8 years old or something, playing this tournament, gets his first tournament. He plays this. He plays against a guy who's so serious, he's playing against a fucking 8-year-old that he can't even play any card in his deck because he was cheating with the mana weave. It's just like you play against something like that, and you're just like, oh my god, these fucking people. Like it was just
that is funny. He knew this. He knew that you were mana weaving. I've never heard that term. I just always heard like stacking your deck.
Yeah,
that's funny.